Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Hey everyone, thank you all for tuning into Biz My Kids, the quarantine edition. My name is Nikki Watson, and I just want to let you know that our future is so bright. Why? You're about to see young scholars pour their heart out, want to know what does it take to be successful. They'll be interviewing today's business leaders to learn how to be tomorrow's business leaders. They will break down those communication barriers between different generations. Check them out.
Hello, welcome to Business Minds Kids, where we train the kings and queens of the future. Today we're going to be interviewing Mr. Maurice Johnson. Take it away, Brooke.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
Okay, well, we're going to make your day even better after. We're going to make your day even better. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my questions. I see that you did debate in high school, and
Yes.
I also do debate, and I also act. So what are some things that you carried from debate to acting?
I think controlling the room and then also being very convincing, because a lot of times in debate we have to choose a side. And so sometimes it can be something that you totally do not agree with. Hey, do you agree with abortion? And I can agree with abortion, but I have to argue, the affirmative or whatever, and so that was one of the big things, and also the research. And so the research is very, very big for us. I use my voice in being commanding when I walk into a room and presence. I'm a big person on presence. And so when you walk into a room, I feel that a person should feel you. And you should fill that room up and you can control the room. And so I have to do that now. It has translated from high school all the way now. I'm 41 years old, and what I learned at 16 about walking into the room, I have to do the same thing when I walk into an audition. So that's how it can be 1,000 people that's in there for that same audition. So I have to be memorable. So they have to remember me, when I walk in. And so I learned some of that from my preparation through debate.
So next, I see that you went to Albany State University, and you already said
Albany State.
Well, I'm from Albany, and so
oh wow.
Yeah. What are some things that what are some things that you liked about the school, and would you recommend it?
Well, I love the school. At that time, I went to a school. I was a star football, baseball, track runner, and I wanted to go to a school because I was tired of losing, and I wanted to go somewhere that had a winning tradition, which they had. I wanted to go to an HBCU. It was a toss-up between some HBCUs and some PWIs. And I chose an HBCU because of a person I consider a big brother. He'd gone there. He had very much success there. He moved back to Augusta, and he had rings on his fingers that signified that he won championships 5 consecutive years. And I went down and I took a visit down to Albany State. I always say that Albany State chose me. I didn't choose them, because Albany State wasn't even on my radar. And I went down there, drove down to South Georgia. It was hotter than Augusta. I saw palm trees, and everybody was just welcoming, and I could just see myself. I said, you know what, wherever I go, I made up in my mind, whatever school I went to, I just was going to be there, for my 4 years, get in and out, get into the corporate world, right? And of course, I was blessed to have a scholarship down there. I was offered to play football, got a championship my freshman year. So we won the conference again. So it was a great time just being down there. So I'm glad I'm glad I made the decision to go to Albany State, and I have lifelong friends that I have from going to college. Even some of my professors I'm still very close to.
So I have one more question. I have one more question left before I hand it over to Amari, and that question is, what was your favorite role? Like, your favorite role to play? What character did you enjoy the most?
My favorite role. My favorite role is a film that's not out yet. I've played a lot of characters. I have an archetype, right? And so I have specific characters that I get casted for very often. And so this time in particular, I'm actually producing and in this film. And so years ago, I was approached with this film. I was approached with a script, and the script was about an African American male. He's very prominent. He went to law school. He's a top lawyer in his city, and he's tasked with working this huge case. The story actually is a New York Times best-selling book. It's called The Cricket's Dance. And so The Cricket's Dance basically goes back from slavery all up until present day. And I'm a believer in showing, Black kings and queens. I'm a believer in showing, Black males and Black females actually in prominent positions and also empowering type, movies. And so this one right here shows a positive Black male that is very successful, very articulate, graduated, from college, graduated from law school, very successful. And even though his lineage was traced back to a plantation down in Savannah, Georgia, he actually ended up being a prominent, lawyer, and that success was totally dependent upon him. So that was my favorite role to date. my number two, I know you didn't ask, my number two is Hawaii Five-0. So I was able to travel to Hawaii and film. So it's like working and getting paid to go on a vacation. So I'm in beautiful Hawaii, and I was able to actually be on screen with some people that I grew up actually idolizing. So it was really good, working on Hawaii Five-0 and being one of the first Black cast members ever on Hawaii Five-0, the new Hawaii Five-0.
When I was doing my research, I saw that you were in I forgot what it's called, like the movie with Queen Latifah in it. And it said
that was Joyful Noise.
Huh? Joyful
Noise. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Joyful Noise.
That was like one of my favorite movies to watch with my grandma. So like, what was it like being like there, and like, what was it like?
I get those questions all the time because of some of the prominent people that I meet. And those two people are two icons. Dolly Parton, your grandmama knows Dolly Parton, right? She's an icon, right? She has a theme park named after her. That's huge, right? Queen Latifah, to me, I grew up listening to her rap first, right? She was the epitome of Black woman power. She, spoke up for us, at all costs. You would see her in her dashikis and, whatever, her African garb. And then she turned into, hey, I'm on, TV now, I'm in film now, and also producing. She's producing her, music and also her film. So to be amongst two of these women icons was amazing for me. They were just witty. And it's a thing called a stand-in. So all of the stars had somebody that stands in for them when it's time for them to put hair and makeup or get changed or whatever. And that person just kind of stands there. And so Dolly Parton's stand-in was told to sit down. She said, no, baby, just go ahead and sit down. This lady's getting paid, right? And she's just sitting down. And Dolly Parton is just walking around. She's shaking hands. So everybody that was in that diner when they were fighting, when her and Queen Latifah were fighting that time in the diner, every single person in there was an extra. And so all of the extras were able to meet Dolly Parton and also meet Queen Latifah. They talked to them, they sang, and Dolly Parton sang songs. Like, we had a mini concert right there. And so people would pay anything to go to a concert for Dolly Parton. It'd be a hard to find ticket. I was able to see that in person and get paid for it. And she just sat there, laughed, asked about, your parents and your mom, how your mama doing? It's just, so it showed you at that time, even though we elevate certain people are some people that have hearts, and they, she cared about like really the people that was there, and she was witty, just cracking jokes. And we were just in there like dying laughing for hours. And we're on set for like 10 or 12 hours that day. And Queen Latifah is like cool, she's deep, she's beautiful, and she's a Black woman. And so just being there around her, I just felt a sense of pride. So it was just wonderful just being around them. So those are two icons, two of the biggest, probably 3 or 4 that I've actually worked with. And so that was 2 in one film. And that was very early in my career. So that's probably one of the first credits that you'll probably see for me.
Okay, I'm gonna pass it over to Omari now, and he's gonna ask you some more questions.
Firstly, I just wanted to say thank you, and we appreciate you being here and taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with us. My first question for you is about time management. How are you able, well, in high school you had to learn this skill because you played football and you were a debater. How were you able to manage time doing both of those fully competitive things?
Well, first it started with my parents. And so my parents, basically, we made a deal. And so I went to high school. I went to magnet school from kindergarten to 8th grade. I begged my mom to go to public school so I could play sports because I just felt and just knew that that was my ticket of getting a scholarship, right? And so my mom said, okay, but it's all about your grades. So if your grades slip, you won't be able to play. So that was always my motivating factor of whether I had to wake up, at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock before the bus came and finish up some work that I didn't do, or finish up the, report that I needed to do, or staying after school, going to study hall and making that time count instead of just lollygagging, hanging around the campus and, talking to all the girls and, all of that stuff. And also when I got home, it literally, I didn't spend time on the phone. It wasn't extra time for me. And so at that time, we didn't have cell phones, of course, at that time. You guys have cell phones. You can bring your cell phone in your room and all of this stuff. We had one phone probably in our kitchen, and it had a long cord. So we had very quick calls, and we had to share that phone. And so I didn't spend a lot of time on the phone. So that gave me more time to, do my homework. I was very tired after football practice or track or baseball or whatever, I was playing at that time. But I would take a quick nap, sometimes at, 7 or 8, but then I'd be back up, and I didn't watch a lot of TV. Didn't watch a lot of TV at all. So TV during the week was none for me because my 1 or 2 hours that I was actually awake and alert, I had to do work. So that translated into being into college, for me as well. And so in college, I did the same thing. It was like very tough, but we had study hall, we had practice at a certain time. We got out of practice, went straight to to dinner. After dinner, in 45 minutes, we had to be in study hall. We were in study hall until almost 10 o'clock at night. And then we went back to our dorm, and we had to be back up at 6 o'clock for practice, for weight training or whatever, or maybe a 7 o'clock class. So it was tough, but we had to do it. So time management is everything. Getting a planner, that worked for me. Using your calendar on your phone, that worked for me. Setting alarms in certain intervals, that worked for me. Having a study buddy worked for me. And not just, and I would always try to fill my idle time. I never sat down with an hour or two. I never had an hour or two of idle time. And I think that's something, I always felt that it was something else that I was supposed to do. And I think that's ingrained in me from being a student athlete, because that's what I always had to do since high school. So right now, I'm always looking like, hey, what else do I need to do? Hey, I need to go work out. I need to go run. I need to go run to the store and do something. I'm a grown man, so hey, my AC is going out. Hey, I need to call this guy and tell him to put some Freon in my AC so that it's blowing cold, in here. I have 3 auditions that I need to do tonight that's due tonight. So I have to go ahead and knock those out as well. So yeah, time management is huge.
Shifting into the world of being a recruiter, how much do you think that's really helped your community, and what else do you plan on doing to impact people? Well, you said that being a recruiter has helped a lot of people of color. What else do you think we could do as young people of color to affect the next generation?
First is figuring out what you're passionate about. I'm a firm believer of doing what you love. And if I'm to tell someone young, what would I do differently? I actually would have been in Hollywood a lot sooner. I actually would have moved fresh out, right after college, because it would have been doing what I love. And so when you probably heard, it's never work when you're doing what you love. And so with me, I'm a firm believer of it's all about whenever you have an opportunity to help someone else up, whatever that industry is that you choose, whether it's working in IT, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a police officer, whether you're whatever. As you grow in life, as long as you find somebody to mentor and pull them up, as I do, I think that's what it's all about.
What are your when it comes to acting?
Future as far as acting is producing. So I want to produce because a lot of times Black people, our stories haven't been able to be told. One is because of capital, meaning that we need money to actually produce these films and stuff like that. So a lot of times, a lot of the larger production houses in LA, they just didn't produce our stories. So I would like to actually write and produce as well as act in my own films so that we can tell our stories. So that's my end goal, is not just being an actor, but using that, the compensation that I get from that, I'm actually investing, reinvesting right back into myself so that we can produce our own films.
I would like to ask you just 2 more questions. My first question, where do you see yourself in 10 years outside of producing, outside of the IT field? Where do you see yourself personally in 10 years?
Hopefully some films or TV shows or just projects, whether it's a documentary or whether it's short films up under my belt that I think is meaningful, that has been able to tell a story, that's been able to impact a nation, be able to impact and empower the youth. And then also, of course, I want to do more as far as mentoring. And so mentoring could be, I mentor right now. I've had some nonprofits, but I actually want to take that to a whole different level. And I believe in like a school like yourself, that a school like KIPP. I would like to actually, I have some fraternity brothers of mine. We're actually talking about, what it is to build another school or to make sure that we change some of the curriculum just to make sure that the future generation is getting everything that they need coming out. So I'm a component of education, but also other skills, that I think you would need as far as life skills that would be pertinent, that I think we need to teach every single one of our Black brothers and sisters that's coming through.
And now for my final question. It's about working on Good Girls. So that show, it's an amazing show. Me and my mom. What prepared you for the role on Good Girls? Like, since it's it seems like it would be a different character. It would be a dramatic character change because I hear you're used to playing like the buff guy. That show, in that show, most people have more of the mellow tone. What did you take for that shift?
Well, before I do a show, even before when I audition for a show, I actually do research on the show. And so at that point, I actually hadn't even seen any of the episodes because it was the first season. So I had to research, the characters, who was going to be in it, who I was going to be playing opposite, how do they talk? And so sometimes when I get a script, I have to see, okay, is this a LA show? Is this a New York show? Is it a show that's based down in Atlanta? Because I would have a Southern draw if I'm in Atlanta, or if I'm in Charlotte or Savannah, Georgia versus New York, I have to change and have a New York accent. I also see the tone of the show and the pitch of the show. Is the show a drama? Is it a comedy? Is it fast? Is it slow? How do they talk? What's their interaction between each other? And so all of those things I had to research prior to doing the show. And so since some of them have a comedic background, some of them have a lot of drama, I did a lot of research on each one of the characters. And then once we got there, we auditioned together, and we actually rehearsed a lot. And we talked when we were we go to hair and makeup after we do our rehearsals, and we just talked about our characters. And we talked about what we call a backstory. And that backstory told me who that character was, what brought us to where we are today. And so it's not just acting about today, but it's like, hey, why does this person look like this? Why do they feel like this? What are the emotions that the other people have? They experienced trauma in the past. So it gets very deep. So you have to do a lot of research. So that's what prepared me for it. And then also just, constant repetition. So with acting, when we get on set, we have to do something. We have to do a lot of takes. And so those takes could be 10, 15 takes or whatever. And this night in particular, if you remember from when I was on there, it was wet outside. It was raining. And so we had to wait for about 2 or 3 hours. So we actually changed the scenes that we were doing. So we had to change on the fly. So you have to really have good acting chops to be able to change, because I could remember those lines because I practiced them a lot. But then because of the rain, we changed things totally up. So we changed our dialogue. We changed how we were interacting. We changed if we were running. I was supposed to be wrestling with somebody, and that didn't happen. So sometimes you have to be able to change on the fly and just, constantly be ready. So that's one of the good things that I have to do to prepare while I'm acting. Great question.
Well, thank you. Now I'm passing it on to Cynthia.
Okay, well, I have a good one or maybe two questions. Because the first question goes to one of my favorite shows, Vampire Diaries, and I would like to know what was your who was your character, and what was your favorite part playing that character?
I came on as a police officer. I'm supposed to be guarding a room of this patient. And so one of the lead characters, of course, Paul, he actually comes in and he vexes me basically with his eyes. So he calls it, they call it the compels. And so he compelled me with his eyes, basically, even though I'm supposed to be guarding this guy's room, he compelled me with his eyes, and that actually got me to leave. And he went in and killed the person or whatever. And that totally messed up my life. I was a married man. I ended up getting divorced. I ended up getting fired from my job, all of this stuff. And so when I came back in the show, I had an afro, it had gray in it, I had this full beard, and I looked like I had aged like 10 years, even though it wasn't. Of course it was hair and makeup. But I came back and I was sitting at a desk, and I actually got interrogated, of course, in a police precinct, and I basically told them about what happened to all of the compels. So that was great. Just meeting them, hanging out with Paul Wesley and Ian. I mean, they were just, they're just very, very cool. And if you didn't know, Vampire Diaries is actually shot right here in Atlanta, Georgia.
I actually did know that.
Yep.
That
Right
is
off
cool.
Yeah, Covington. They shot some stuff in Covington, the originals as well. And where I filmed that was actually off of Panola Road. So I know many of you have probably been off of Panola Road for whatever reason, but literally, when you turn off of Panola Road behind the Bojangles, it was a studio. And that's where we used to be running through the woods, and we had Vampire Diaries studio right there.
My last question was, if you can pick like your top 2 favorite TV shows that you were in, what would be the
2? Top 2. Y50 and Chicago Fire. I just love Chicago series. So Chicago Fire PD, ER, all of those are great to me. And it was great just being in Chicago in the elements, and they shoot it real. It feels real. Like I had on probably 30 pounds of firefighter gear that I had to run in. And so it makes it authentic.
Well, thanks for the information, and thank you for your time.
You're very welcome, Cynthia.
Today we met with Mr. Maurice Johnson, and we spoke about almost everything he's done, from recruiting to acting in some of our favorite television series, and just talking about him as a person. Thank you. My well wishes go out to everyone out there on the front line fighting COVID-19.
All my well wishes go to all the policemen, women, and everything that have to deal with all these protests, and they might get corona of how the big people protests are going on.
My well wishes just for the world that we can just heal. Hopefully we can now, because of Black Lives Matter, because of protests, the peaceful protesting, because of changes in legislation. I just pray for everybody that's involved, from the lawmakers, the politicians, the firefighters. I have friends as firefighters that had to go put out fire at the Wendy's last week. I have friends that are police officers that have to, calm these crowds down. I have people that have, that I know personally that have died because of, the coronavirus. I know over 20 infected. I know at least probably 10 that's died because of it. So it's real. And it just goes out to us also, because I know everybody's stir crazy and want to get out of your house and do more, just get back to normalcy. But we have to also remind ourselves that, hey, you want to be here next year. You want to be here 10 years from now, 20 years from now. All of the kids is actually on that was on today. We want to see you here, so wear your mask, be smart, be safe. protect your loved ones, and right now, spend your time with your family. Spend your time with your family, concentrating on what's next, concentrating on your work, because we don't have, our world right now, for the first time, has not had many of the distractions that we have been used to. And so we're being able to be more productive, and let's, utilize this time and just continue to pray for our next, our brothers and sisters.
Thank you for watching Business Minds Kids, where we train the kings and queens of the future.